get things kicked off here, what we're looking at is a nice little comic, are you okay to start on Monday? And, by the way, I'm not telling anyone you're coming, so you won't have anything ready for you. And we don't even have a desk yet, so you can just wing it, right? Now, hopefully this isn't what your onboarding process looks like today, but let's face it, this could easily happen. Maybe that manager, isn't there on that first day of employment for your employee, and you really don't have things plotted out for day 2, day 3, or what that could look like if that person wasn't there. So I think for today, we're just going to really focus in and have a better understanding of what is needed in order to have a successful onboarding process. So you've hired someone. Now what? Really setting that tone for your new hire quality of work and productivity on day 1 should be one of the first goals that you achieve. Relying on a one-day HR orientation or a series of unrelated administrative tasks and a folder of forms really won't protect you and your recruitment investment. But an awesome onboarding process that begins before the first day and lasts for the first year can be a huge game changer for you. And yes, I said for the first full year. Onboarding is really the most critical time in the employment life cycle, and unsuccessful onboarding immediately lowers the chance to engage and retain a new hire. While effective onboarding will really, set the tone for the new job success, and the onboarding plan does not just last that day, week, or month. It's really that continuous cycle and really having that strong onboarding process mapped out for the full year, which will result in just a big win for you and overall happiness for your employee. So why automating onboarding is so important? New employees make their decision to stay with an organization within the first 6 months. And those are really considered the most critical time of their employee life cycle. So increase employee engagement and retention by implementing a successful onboarding strategy, and you will have a 37% faster time to full productivity for your new hires, meaning they are up and running on the job and ready to take action. A 29% greater number of employees who actually rate themselves as being highly engaged, a decrease of 21% in total time to hire, and even a 2% more revenue for the full-time employees equivalent. Really, the bottom line, HR managers have now really begun to turn to onboarding their new hires online to incorporate even an electronic signature. And this is in order to really just improve upon recruitment competitiveness, onboarding your new hires faster, providing that greater convenience to your employees. Additionally, in today's increasingly regulated environment, it's going to be critical that HR can demonstrate compliance, with key processes. Mistakes are very costly, and audits, take up a lot of time. So onboarding online with e-signatures can ensure accuracy and really help to demonstrate compliance. And when and if your organization was ever audited, this will really come into play. So 69% of new hires are more likely to remain at a company up to 3 years with a well-structured onboarding program. Losing an employee due to their experiences of being maybe confused, maybe they're feeling alienated, or even lacking the confidence is a sign of poor onboarding programs, and is why many decide within that first 6 months, like we mentioned, whether to stay with the organization or move on to that next opportunity. All these forms and manually entering all the data into multiple systems, not to mention trying to read someone else's handwriting, is really, really exhausting. So trying to eliminate all that manual data entry is probably one of the first and foremost things that you want to accomplish with having an automated online onboarding system. So making a great first impression with a 100% paperless process, these again are some of the results that you can see by implementing something online. I mean, just looking at the first one, you can really eliminate cost of your paper-based process by 31%. You can actually improve your retention rate by 52%. you will see a 28% of your time will be given back to you based on the fact that you have more time now to put forth more productivity within the HR department versus having to really facilitate and manage the collection of all these forms. A 60% improvement in time to productivity. You know, when you hire someone, a lot of times we're not always being able to forecast into the future on when we're going to need someone. It's usually we need someone now, we need someone that's ready to go, and we don't want to have to lag behind in the time that it's going to take to get that person up to speed. So again, with an onboarding process that could be online, completely paperless, you're going to see a 60% improvement in time to productivity, getting that person out there and in the job and, you know, being able to complete those tasks on time in a very quick manner is going to be very important. The company brand, really with your whole branding portal and being able to be consistent with your message, will increase by 41%. And overall, you'll see an increase in customer satisfaction by 53%. So keep in mind, when you have happy employees that have gone through this great process, you're also going to have happy customers. So what are some key onboarding activities that we see out in the industry? Two specialists out there, Aberdeen and Burson, did research on this. And at the first and foremost, we're going to see form completion at the very top. So number one, you know, everybody has to go in and complete these forms, and it's obviously something everyone has to do. But looking at the list here of all the different things that are also incorporated here might help you to understand some other things that you might want to implement. Take, for example, I start off socialization. So socialization is really an identifier to be able to showcase your new hires how they can share out different job opportunities with any family and friends. So being able to refer others to come and work for your organization and making sure that that's an easy process for them to do and that they can quickly and easily share out that information, maybe from your website, for example. The other key one is a buddy system, and a buddy system I'm a huge fan of because I think it gives you an opportunity for that new hire to really understand the company culture a lot faster and being able to really engage with other coworkers and peers much quicker as well, versus maybe having to always go to a manager or an HR manager with any questions that they might have. A buddy system can really help them to get acclimated more quickly. So when a new employee onboarding is done correctly, it really is going to lead to higher job satisfaction, organizational commitment, decrease in turnover, a better performance level out of all of them, career complementing, and really just lowers the stress level. An employee at any level should always remain comfortable at their job while helping the organization to accomplish specific goals and even, you know, perform at the higher level with performance. So here are just some helpful tips to really start that employee's journey and some of the things you might want to consider implementing with your onboarding process. So having that new employee actually write up a short bio to share with the company or department before they actually start with the organization. This will give an employee a chance to at least know something about them and to allow for easier conversation and being able to start up a conversation very easily with that new hire. Secondly, you know, have that agenda ready, you know, spelling out exactly what they will be doing for that first week or two, maybe that first month, 60 days out, 90 days out, and what does that year-long process actually look like? Making sure that their workspace is comfortable and that they have everything that they need, their desk is organized, and that you're making sure that they have their company phone set up, maybe a vehicle access, maybe some of their equipment and tools and where they can get some of this information, making sure that they have their uniforms and they're ready to get started. Any types of small gifts, trinkets, anything like that that has the company information on it, maybe a mug, a pen, having some of those different items right there at their desk or given to them during the onboarding process will help them feel more welcomed. And start emailing them some information so that when they log into their email system, they already have some emails that are welcoming them. Maybe saying something like, you know, I found this document really helpful when I first started here, so I thought I would share it with you. It could even be items like a map of the company or where some of the conference rooms are and what they might be labeled. Assigning that work buddy, like I mentioned before, Or they can maybe meet daily just to be able to go over some questions, maybe get them introduced to some other coworkers perhaps. And then always setting the expectations early, making sure that they fully understand what's expected out of them on day one. Walking through any types of company processes, maybe like how to request PTO, or what if I'm sick one day, what am I supposed to do? Call my manager, or how am I supposed to handle that situation? And with any type of training that might need to be completed on day one, so you might have some compliance training or harassment training that needs to be taken. You can't take for granted that everyone understands the reason for training like that. If they came from a smaller organization, that may not be something that they had before. So making sure that they fully understand, the why factor behind why they have to take this training, what it's used for, and the importance of it. And then making sure that we open up the feedback, making sure that they understand that they can offer up feedback, they can receive feedback, and having that structure and really committing to that, within the day one of their employment will really help with that employee engagement. So bridging the gap between recruitment and performance. This is another great reason to really make onboarding a priority based upon, happy employees, referrals, and building that better culture. Really starting off by putting your best foot forward on day one with all of your new hires, because research shows that over 30% of new hires actually come from referrals. So if your new hire has a great experience, they're going to be likely to share that with others, which in turn could be a great referrals for the future. So making sure everyone within your organization is ready, they're welcoming, they want that new hire to start and to have a great experience and to share it with others. Another reason why that socialization piece is so big in order to promote at the very beginning during that onboarding process so that they can share that with others right away. 89% of new hires actually fail due to just a poor culture fit. So if you don't have a buddy system in place, it might be something to consider because it can really help them to adapt to the culture, to be able to fit in quickly and get a better understanding of what that culture is going to be like. Employee engagement should really be a focus as soon as your new hire arrives on that very first day. So when outlining any of the expectations or immersing the employees in company culture is done correctly, it can actually lead to higher job satisfaction, which ultimately creates employee engagement and will lower employee turnover overall. As we continue to go through this process, I'm just going to share some other great ideas in regards to an onboarding process that will really help to make you have more happy employees, which will increase your referrals and really overall give you that great company culture. So organizations with a standard onboarding process in place today will actually see a 54% greater new hire productivity. Again, meaning that we're getting them out the door quickly and we're getting them socialized quickly within the organization, allowing them to get up to speed and get to their job tasks that they need to complete. 50% greater new hire retention overall with an onboarding system in place. Now, many companies often confuse orientation with new employee onboarding, and the two are really not the same. So orientation is the start of a new employee onboarding, but the actual onboarding is going through an onboarding process flow chart that typically includes like employee performance, acceleration, performance objectives or goal setting, and really instilling that company culture within the employee. And anything that that we can think of within that first year that they're going to need to accomplish, and it's really kind of outlining all of that information in one. So less than 50% of employees know what's expected of them at work. 50%, that's a large, large amount. And by sharing what the employees will be measured on for their performance reviews will really help them to better understand what's expected of them. That might not be something that you've ever considered before, or maybe that's not something you're doing today, but I highly recommend it. I mean, being able to see on day one what is expected of me, what am I going to be measured on. So sharing your performance review process and what those questions look like really create that open door policy and allow them to be able to have that insight as to the company culture that you are creating here. So here's something to consider. What's expected of me? here's kind of what employees need to know. In order to improve performance, they need to be working toward what motivates them. And how can we help with that? By expressing a lot of times what's expected of them, what does their role entail, what will they be accomplishing day in and day out. Being specific with employees about what's meant by performance. You know, they need to know what's expected, what's considered unacceptable, and try to offer up some examples here to reach their standard level of performance. Your expectations can affect the behavior of the employee overall. And a lot of times, if you expect performance and trust employees to deliver, you're likely to get it. So you want to create an environment that encourages and supports high levels of performance by being specific in setting your objectives or your goals and trying to stimulate and challenge your employees by providing the resources they need and really showing them how much you really appreciate and respect them. All in all, you want to make sure that you set those clear expectations. Make no assumptions. No matter what company they maybe came from in the past, you might assume that that's probably how that company operated. So our company would operate the same way. We don't really need to explain that. That's not the case. Again, make no assumptions. Go ahead and spell it out so they are clear on all expectations. And really, getting to know your employees, asking them questions, like what motivates them or what makes them want to come to work every day. And making sure that we're helping managers understand the importance of these questions and how to use these questions to really connect some of their goals that they might have to work for throughout the year. Having managers really bridge that gap here between more frequent feedback and being able to understand what types of questions to really ask their employees to improve employee engagement, to make sure that we're meeting the goals and we're staying on task, is really helping them to put that best foot forward and to get off on the right foot, really. It will also help to build that relationship between the manager and the employee. Use goal setting and development opportunities to really improve productivity. Some of the best companies, spend the most time developing their employees for growth opportunities, meaning kind of promoting within. So with growth opportunities exist, these companies will be prepared with maybe their top talent that they have set up or any of their successors that they might have in place, but helping employees know and understand what their career path will look like, and then making sure that we're keeping them on track for upward mobility within the organization can really help them stay engaged and be equipped to continuously move up within the organization. So 25% of companies actually admitted that their onboarding program does not include any form of training, which really just leads to a loss of 60% of companies' entire workforce. So without a substantial and effective training program and a new employees onboarding effort, disappointments are going to render along with performance and really just ending in an overall loss of profit. You'll see here where you really have to link performance and learning together. And it's really a continuous learning model that you have to think of. So think of learning in regards to what are our immediate needs, what are some of our intermediate needs, and what are some of the transitional needs that we might have. And really asking some of those questions, in regards to what's needed to support this employee with their success today. What's needed in order to help them grow within their current role, and then what's really needed to help them grow within their career. And then really aligning and prioritizing all of your learning efforts based upon these three models. So 60% of companies indicated that they do not set any milestones or concrete goals for new hires to attain. And in turn, when you think about that, it takes many new hires a whole year to start working at their full potential. So an employee that has no assigned goals will really just lead to additional confusion among the employee and a lack of care overall with their performance. By having a strong onboarding process in place, you're really going to be able to get the new hire working at their full potential much, much faster, as we saw with other statistics that I showed earlier. And how are we going to get started with some of these goals? Mainly starting from the top, what the CEO or president's strategy is. Being able to, or any attempt that you have to really go out and change the culture within your organization is going to have to start from the top. And if you are developing any strategy or structure, it's really going to be doomed to failure if you don't have the support of the CEO or president in order to change that strategy, change the culture, and really create more of an engaging workforce that will basically help you to get to the top of the organization. So here's an organization that actually was rated about 23rd on Fortune's 100 Best Companies to Work For, and they were able to move up to the 15th place because they have a very engaging and intensive onboarding process that they implemented. During that time frame, they were able to move their places just based off that. A lot of their new employees learned about organization values, procedures within the 5-week training course, and this really helped develop a more productive firm overall. It was more transparent of an organization, and it allowed employees to understand the company's direction as all the executives were on the same page. So just something to think about. There's a lot of clarity there, and it's very helpful to make sure that we have these measures in place in order to help us to understand what a difference an onboarding process can make. So getting managers involved to really support the change will be key, obviously. And having those good bones or good managers in place to support the structure will really result in more of a successful execution upon that strategy that we're putting out there. So, what is the strategy? A firm strategy of how you're going to make this happen. What is your strategy? Have you had clear goals identified from the CEO? Where do you actually need to get started? One strategy that has been defined, once the strategy has been defined, now you can really, figure out how you're going to get there. And one of the goals to keep in mind when creating that automated onboarding process is setting that goal initially, putting that plan in place on what you're going to be accomplishing, working towards that goal, sticking to it, and making sure we have a successful implementation and that we have, in fact, have a good return on investment based upon our goals. Utilizing this type of a methodology can really help you to get established with your goal setting processes within the organization and making sure that you're holding everyone accountable. When creating some of the goals for your employees, this is a structure that you could actually follow when creating this. So the company can't expect employees to succeed in the long run if goals really aren't aligned with the company goals. So developing employees to overcome obstacles and preparing them for the future roles within the organization really can start with the overall company vision. And then the strategy as far as how they're going to move forward with that. Department goals that can be aligned with more of the manager level goals, and then really hitting and touching upon what those individual goals look like for each employee. When developing any of the goals, whether they're broad or specific, keep in mind that you'll always want to keep the SMART acronym in place. So being able to specify the exact goal that you're looking to accomplish. How are we going to measure the success of this goal? Is it something that's actually attainable? Can I actually successfully succeed at this goal? Is it relevant to me or to my department or to the company overall? And then how soon do I need to accomplish this goal? So mobile devices are everywhere these days, and it's included that 90% plus of millennials have a smartphone today. Mobile actually is going to trump all desktop access within the demographic. It's virtually every case where mobile outpaces desktop for digital media and time spent. So having an online system to support all of your onboarding needs is one thing, but then also having the ability to be able to set goals, to track any skill gaps or performance reviews on the go or via a mobile device is another. And according to Gallup, they actually did a panel where 81% of smartphone users say that they keep their phone near them almost all the time during waking hours. With this statistic alone, it would pretty much be essential to have the ability to complete an onboarding documentation via a mobile device. So just think, if you're waiting in line for something, you could get online, finish your onboarding paperwork, or maybe you're sitting at one of your kids' practices. It makes it very easy to complete the paperwork right from your phone. This obviously will allow for a very fast return on all your documents, and you might, maybe, even get all that documentation returned back to you prior to that first day of employment. Can you imagine? So here, take it from the new employee. I just completed all my new hire paperwork in 5 minutes from my phone. I start my new job tomorrow. Or maybe from the HR manager's perspective. I just completed all the new hire paperwork with the click of 2 buttons. Wow, that was awesome. Imagine all the time you just saved. So now let's really look at the facts that are associated with building out a business case for an online onboarding process. So the information that you'll need to gather and track throughout the process is looking at employee growth, number one. So what are the trends? How have we grown year over year? 2, really looking at your new hires annually. So how many new hires are you bringing on an annual basis? But then also drill down into a monthly basis, because generally speaking, as you're hiring more and more people during a busy time, that also is taking a lot of your productivity away. And if it's already a busy time, having to onboard people manually is going to even take more time. And again, the time that you will save during those crucial months is going to be key. So the preparation of forms, time it takes to print them out, to organize them, to make sure that they're all in place and you have all the pages 1 through 5 calculated correctly. Not to mention, the printer wear and tear. Needless to say, I have had a few moments with the printer where you just want to unplug it, plug it back in about 5 different times, because no matter what you do, it doesn't seem to be printing off the correct information. The mailing costs. So a lot of times you have to send out return information. So there's a lot of cost associated with that, and a lot of times you have to have a specific carrier in order to send out that information prior to their first day of employment. The collection of forms. Do you know where your forms are at all times? Do you know if the new hire still has them, or if they turned them into the manager, or if they're with HR? Where exactly are they? So that tracking process is going to be essential. And again, how much time do you spend tracking different things down at any point in time? Not to mention the processing of the forms. Going completely paperless and not having to do that data entry, the time and accuracy are really the biggest player here. And just to have a couple examples of, maybe when you are entering in some of the information, you realize, oh, they forgot to sign their I-9 form, so you have to backtrack and get that information. Or maybe, for example, they forgot to include a voided check for their direct deposit. It could be that their handwriting is so poor that when you're actually manually entering in the information, you key in their last name incorrectly. Therefore, on their first pay stub, they actually have their name spelled wrong. So just making sure, that you're researching exactly how much time is spent doing all of these different things and how much more effective it's going to be once you have a new system in place, and that you can commit really to that whole paperless process. So compliance is always going to be at the forefront in most organizations. So another great reason to have an automated onboarding system is really based upon compliance. So some of the key things to consider here where an online onboarding system can help is the automation of updating your I-9 and W-4s, the ability to have an integrated E-Verify where it automatically goes out to check to see if that person's eligible to work in the United States, for example. The e-signature that I mentioned earlier, so making sure that everyone is actually filling out and signing the correct documents, where if they are doing it via paper process, you don't realize that until the end, then you're trying to track them down, hey, you forgot to sign this, we need to get this signed before we can pay you, etc. Having any types of custom forms where the employee is signing off on these forms and acknowledging these forms, any types of policies that you have in place, being able to have an integrated library where these are kept and stored and documented will be essential. And then the final piece is really an integration with any of your HRIS or accounting or payroll systems, being able to send all this information over so it avoids any of that data entry and any of those errors that could easily occur. So some of the overall benefits of going paperless for onboarding is really the improved employee hire engagement. Tailoring the new hire experience to employee's job, department, location is going to really help new hires acclimate to the company culture and all the procedures early on. A fully branded new hire onboarding portal will allow for a streamlined communication of company benefits and business objectives, engaging with the employee in the business before they even start working. So one of the key indicators was, if you remember correctly, being able to have an increase in the actual company branding. And that's based off of this whole process where it's very clear, it's consistent, and they're being able to see all the documentation based upon the company itself. An enhanced human resource productivity, which will automate and streamline the process, really helping the HR department overall to regain productivity. It's going to eliminate any oversights. You'll be able to have that reporting and metrics that can give HR a direct view into tasks that require completion, bridge that gap between departments involved in the onboarding process, and really keeping tabs on that where we could essentially maybe even improve the productivity based upon some of the new hire completion of that paperwork. So an increased retention rates is another big one, where you're going to have your task management tools to help ensure new hires are equipped with all the tools needed in order to succeed, providing really that window into what culture is assuring your new hires that they feel, really part of that larger organization. And the final one is looking at the task management and process improvement. So using system reporting capabilities, they'll be able to generate, any types of reports that expose any, bottlenecks or key processes that aren't working clearly, and really allow you to measure any KPIs or key performance indicators. Ensure important elements are not missed, but still identifying some of the areas, that may benefit from this whole process improvement. So just to continue on with the tasks related to your return on investment and making sure that you're focusing in on the key areas throughout the time that you have this process in place and motivating you to move into more of an automated process. You'll want to continue to obviously track the number of employees processed per year, the cost savings on production and processing of employee materials, time savings on logistics, tracking, and collection of the employee documents overall. Once you look at all of this and compare it to maybe where you were last year compared to this year, if you move to an automated process, will really help support you with all of your continued efforts and continue to have that support backing you because you have those numbers associated with the return on investment. So BirdDogHR does offer an onboarding module, and it's actually integrated with our applicant tracking system. It also integrates from there into an HRIS or your payroll system, like I mentioned before, where all the information from onboarding can automatically be sent over to populate those systems. BirdDogHR offers a completely automated system to track really everything associated with the employee journey, not necessarily just onboarding, but looking at the applicant tracking, so recruiting that employee, onboarding that employee, making sure that they're very clear on what are their goals and they're expected out of them with performance. Learning, making sure we have compliance training, we can track all those certifications in place, and having a succession or career path in mind for the employee and having that well documented are some of the key offerings that we have. We would obviously love to share with you or help you to build that business case with your onboarding with our onboarding module. And if there is a need, we would love to hear from you, so please don't hesitate to reach out to us. But in review of today's session, some of the things that are important to remember is to make sure that we're setting the tone for that new hire, quality of work, and productivity on day one. You want to make sure that we have an increase in employee engagement and retention with that onboarding process. Make a first great impression with 100% paperless process, not to mention all the time and money that would save. And really bridging that gap between recruitment and performance and making sure that we have that clear vision and culture built in. Using goal setting and development opportunities to improve productivity, and again, just making sure that the employees are very well aware of what's expected of them. Ann, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you just for wrapping things up. Are there any questions out there?
We will give the audience a few moments to submit questions via the Q&A panel. We have had a few come in, so we'll go ahead and address those. So the first one is, do users need to have an email address in order to complete the onboarding paperwork online?
Oh yeah, that's a great question. One of the things that we mentioned about the branding situation and making sure that you have the company branding, so that would be like with a portal, or making sure that when they come into the office, they're able just to get online and go ahead and complete the paperwork. Therefore, they wouldn't need an email address to get started. But if you wanted them to complete any paperwork prior to their first day of employment, it would be essential to have an email address to be able just to send that out to them so that they can go ahead and get started on that.
All right, very good. The next question is, does it matter if our employees are union or non-union?
No, actually the process can be tailored based upon whether an employee is union or non-union. It can be actually based upon any type of specific job role or job code that someone has within the organization, and then you can really configure that workflow accordingly.
Okay, very good. Next question is, do you have to have the BirdDogHR ATS in order to use the onboarding module?
Well, of course you do. No, just kidding. You don't have to have the ATS to use onboarding. We would like you to have the ATS to use onboarding, but you don't necessarily need that. You can get started with the onboarding system. If you have a recruitment system in place today, that's fine as well. But overall, no matter what system you're using, you can always tag on or add on our onboarding module.
All right, very good. Yeah, that speaks to, we have really flexible integration, so you can really integrate any of our modules with your existing systems. Okay, another question that has come in is, with the I-9s, we need to see those documents. How would you do that?
So the documents are going to be stored within an online process so that you can easily have all of that information there. But I think you're referring to the actual documents in regards to their forms of identification that they have to utilize. So typically how it works is the employee would fill out all the information, submit it to the manager, and then the manager, the hiring manager, or the HR manager is verifying those two forms of identification. There's certain metrics or certain information that has to be copied or populated, obviously, from those forms, and those are all put into the online system and tracked in the online system as well.
Okay, hopefully that answers Chris's question. Chris, if you have any further questions, please go ahead and submit that in the Q&A panel. Lori, we did have somebody ask about what is the cost for the automated onboarding module?
The cost for it, that is something that you could just reach out to your account manager. It's really going to vary in regards to the number of employees that you have, is how that would be priced out. So if you have additional questions with that, just go ahead and let us know, and we can get you in touch with your account manager and or a salesperson to offer up that information.
All right, very good. Next question is, if we do not have an onboarding system in place, what would you recommend as the first step in presenting this for approval to management?
It's really building out that business case, like I mentioned, so kind of going through that slide where I list out getting some of the facts in place first. If you're going to be taking this to management for approval, you're going to have something that supports it. So the need needs to be, how many people are you onboarding, how much time is spent doing this, and really calculating out some of that information ahead of time so that you're very well prepared to answer those questions for some of those people that really pay more attention to the dollar amounts on things and that return on investment. So I would start, one, gathering that information and helping you to prepare that better business case before that presentation.
Very good. That's all the questions that have been submitted. I'll go ahead and run through a few more slides before we end, just to give anybody a last minute to input a question. But the slide that you're seeing right now is some of the great logos from our customers across the nation. We actually have over 950 companies that we're working with nationwide, and our customers really most often rave about how easy our talent management solution solution is to use, and that they love being able to call in directly to customer care located here in Des Moines, Iowa, when they have a question or problem. And then on the next slide, we would also like to share with you that we do find one of the ways that we can help the HR community is to share expertise and best practices. So we're constantly creating new resources to help you navigate the changing talent acquisition, onboarding, and talent management landscape. So here are just a few examples of the free resources that are available at BirdDogHR.com. And in fact, we just recently released a new infographic on the topic of onboarding. So I would invite you to check that out on our website, and all of those are available free for download. I have not seen any more questions come into the queue, so we'll go ahead and give you back a few minutes into your day. Lori, thanks for a great presentation. I think everyone found a few things that they would be able to apply to their business, and I'd like to thank the audience for taking the time with us today. Thanks, everyone, and have a great day.